Welcome to the Connectable podcast.
The Connectable podcast starts in 3, 2, 1.
We're never really sure how to start these things. We used to have this whole intro for our other podcast, and now it's like we're just going to go. So today's guest is Jordan White. He is part of the Lost Things. It's a band here in Sacramento. That sounded so clumsy and awkward. Hey, Jordan, man, why don't you introduce yourself?
The Beatles. That was awesome. I know. Part of the Beatles. It's a part of the Lost Things.
It sounded pretty official, didn't it?
That was dead on. That was it.
Okay,
that was
perfect. But basically, you're a musician, you're a husband, father, amongst, I think, just an artist in general, right?
Sure.
So welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so we like to start off the show by letting people know like how we're connected, because it's called Connectable. And so our connection to you, or my connection to you, is so I went to high school with your wife, and then
I didn't even know that.
Oh,
you're blowing my mind right now. No, I did not even know that. That's
seriously.
Great news.
I had okay. Well, that makes us the rest of this
whole
weird
life
then.
before me. I had no idea.
Yeah. So
we're learning new things today.
I know that's the point of this podcast. We try to learn more about each other and get more connected. Yeah. So here we go.
I feel closer to my wife already. This is great.
There we go.
This is good.
But yeah, we went to high school together, and we I think we were TAs in the counseling office together for a year, and then kind of became Facebook friends and all that stuff. But then when my now wife Rachel and I got engaged, we reached out to your wife because she's a photographer, and we said, hey, we love your stuff, and would you be interested and available to do our wedding? She's like, yeah, absolutely. So we met a couple times, and then when we did our engagement photos, she brought you along because you were starting to get into the video world, and you did some really cool stuff with just like a behind the scenes video of us doing engagement pictures. And we're like, well, the person we were hoping could do the video for our wedding wasn't available. And so like, hey, why don't we just talk to Jordan? And so you were available, and it was awesome. So you and a buddy of yours, I think, were the ones there on the day of the wedding. And so that's basically how we're connected, man. And so now I feel like we're connected for life.
And that was the last wedding I did. That was the very last wedding video.
Oh, no.
And let's be honest, it didn't turn out very well. We were
No.
Josh is going to be so nice about this. My wife is laughing in the corner because she knows what I'm saying, even with my headphones on.
Is she there right now?
She is in the very back somewhere doing work.
Oh, that's funny. No. It was great. I was actually just talking to my brother about this. Like, here's the problem. I wanted a lot of like Josh, the video.
He's so sweet.
No. I'll be honest. Like the video that you sent to us was awesome, but it was super short, and the day is so long. And I think I even emailed you like, "Hey, man, awesome video, but it's like, is there any way we can get the raw footage?" And to be honest with you, my wife and I had a great time just looking at the raw clips too. So
that's great.
There was one weird. I'll be honest with you. You say I'm nice now, but there was one clip that I didn't quite understand. I know for a fact you didn't do it. It was your buddy, but he just basically shot a lizard on the ground for like 10 or 15 seconds. I'm like, what's the lizard doing here? So
I don't remember that at all.
That's okay. News. I remembered it because I'm like, it was like, oh, beautiful shot of my wife, really cool shot of the scenery, and then a lizard. I'm like, what happened here?
That's hilarious. That's so funny.
So if I had to be honest, I did make fun of that a few times. To this day, I still do. But like I said, I think you're off the hook though. I know for a fact it wasn't you because I could see you in a background shot when right before he like panned down. So perfect. But anyways, man, that's how we're connected. But that's not really the reason we have you on here. We want to talk about your music. Yeah, you're a musician. You're in a band. You're a singer. I'm sure you play a bunch of instruments. I feel like all musicians, especially when they're like in a band like you are, you guys have the ability to play all of them, right? To some extent.
Yeah, I mean, less or more, I suppose. Everybody's a little bit different, but generally speaking, like most dudes in bands kind of been like thrown around from position to position. I would say there's a real distinction between band dudes and musicians are guys that are like long-term going to play music for the rest of their lives, and band dudes are guys who like thrive with inside their band, and if that goes away, the whole thing goes away. So there's a pretty big difference between the two, but most band guys have kind of been shuffled around from position to position to a certain degree. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it kind of becomes like an adult softball league. It's like you're out there to play.
That's exactly right.
You know what I mean? You could play any position.
Exactly.
Or an indoor soccer league.
Or very indoor soccer. Deb's a big indoor soccer fan. I don't know if you care at all about indoor soccer. I don't. But She loves bringing
It's
it
my
up.
one passion
Haven't.
in life, actually.
Oh, we should have known. Why are we talking about
Right.
music? Yeah.
I don't know.
Let's talk about soccer.
I know,
That's it.
seriously.
That's it. No, I've never heard that analogy before, but I'm going to use that from here on out. That is the best analogy I've ever heard. You have a friend who like maybe has a baseball glove and you're like, he can play right field. It's not a big deal. That's 100% how bands work. You're like, that dude has a guitar somewhere or a bass. Like, he's fine. He looks okay in skinny jeans. Throw him
That's
out
awesome.
there. It's cool. That's the best
awesome.
analogy.
Oh, good. I'm glad you like that. Okay, well, let me take it a little bit further then, because as you know, if you played any kind of adult rec sport, you always have different personality types, and there's always the one person who maybe hypes themselves up too much, or their buddy hypes them up too much. Like, oh, I know a dude. He's a great shortstop. Let's bring him out. It's like, yeah, dope. And then you see him play. It's like, I feel like someone's lying here. Is that the same with bands where it's like, oh, I've got a dope bass player, and then he gets there, it's like,
yeah, 1,000,000%. Yeah, it's there's literally not a single part of that analogy that doesn't hold up so far.
this is awesome. I had no
Yeah.
idea. This is
I
off
didn't
the top of the
either.
head. There you go.
This is killer.
Wow.
Have you had
So-
those conversations? Sorry, have you had those conversations with before? Like, were you?
Unfortunately, yeah. And
Oh.
bass players are typically your right fielders in bands. Not to knock all bass players. There's some like great dudes out there. Just like there's some great right fielders out there.
Sure.
But nobody is like hyped to be a right fielder when they're 9. You know what I mean? Like nobody
Absolutely.
wants to be that. Yeah.
Right.
So it's always the bass player for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so Jordan, I'm curious. I mean, I'm sure Josh was about to ask this part because we like to, ask our guests, like, take us to the beginning. I want to know, especially like as, someone who's into music, and that is such a specific skill to have.
Sure.
Like, not everyone can play an instrument, sing, not everyone has rhythm, like can't even, hit a note. So like how far back does that go in terms of like your passion for music and then that talent and stuff?
Yeah, I've been playing music since I was real little. I think I started playing drums first. I know I started playing drums first, but I was probably, like 3 or 4 years old. I was real young, and my parents didn't have a ton of money, and so they were going to get me a drum set for Christmas one year, and then somebody in the church that we went to when I was a kid randomly offered to give them a drum set for me, and so I got a drum set that year, and that was kind of the beginning of that, and then just picking things up slowly along the way. My family's a pretty musical family. My dad plays keys and did all kinds of music directing type stuff throughout his lifetime, and he's a killer keys player. My mom sings, and then the rest of the family plays stuff too, so it was pretty ingrained into my childhood. There was always a piano around or that sort of stuff, so it's been a long time.
Did you guys do like family band stuff?
No, we never really did any of that. We like a handful of times, like some of us played simultaneously just by happenstance, like at a church somewhere or something like that, but never anything super intentional. No, nothing Partridge Family-esque.
Yeah. So
Dang,
what
that would
are
have been awesome if that was
I
the
know,
case.
right? That was my well, because that's so I'm so stereotypical when I hear that, like, oh, my whole family is kind of musicians. I'm like,
Sure.
oh, do you guys all play together? Do you guys all sing together?
I'm
you guys
sure
do
some
that stuff?
do.
Yeah. What is your so what are all the instruments, like what are all the musical things that you do?
Because I play left field, but I guess I could play first base if I needed to. Like, that's kind of how I feel about most instruments. Like, I play drums. Like, that is for sure the instrument that I would say, like, I am a drummer. Right. I would never say that I'm a guitarist, but I do play guitar. I'd never say that I'm a bassist or a pianist or anything, but I play those things as well.
Wow.
Kind of fake my way through. But you played softball. You played rugby league softball. You're like, I have an understanding of the game. Like, I could throw the ball from over here instead of from over there. Like,
right. Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Well, yeah. That's like
not as impressive as it sounds.
Yeah. No, it's like I played softball in junior college, and just this last year on our other podcast, The Combine, I talk about my indoor soccer adult league, women 30 and over league a lot. That's kind of that thing too. Like, oh, I can play a sport. I can play soccer. I've never played soccer before in my life.
Yeah, 100%.
6th grade. I don't know if that counts, but 6th grade maybe.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I have a half a season under my belt.
Yeah, there you go.
It's the same way. People sound so impressed, like, oh my goodness, you play so many instruments. And I'm like, it's literally like switching from first base to second base. Like, it's it's the same game. There's a couple differences, but it's the same game. You'll get by.
Yeah.
When I went to Sierra College for a few years, and I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I decided to take a music course. I don't have a musical bone in my body. I tried playing trumpet in 6th grade, wasn't pretty. Like, the whole house was, It was just like terrorizing their ears when I had to practice. And then in college, for whatever reason, I'm like, I'm gonna take this intro to music class. Now the syllabus very specifically said you did not need to know how to read music. That was a lie, because I got in the class and I'm looking at this book and there's like no words on it, just the notes. I'm like, maybe I'm on the wrong page. And this very sweet girl that was next to me, she became friends and she decided to help me out. And she would have to like basically like a sing-along book point where we were supposed to be at because I was like on page 2 and she's like, oh no, we're on page 4. You're way behind. I was so bad. She was. Now I can't remember her name. It was a long time ago, but we were good friends at that point because she really helped me get through that music class. But
was it my wife?
No. Can you imagine if like, I can't remember. Maybe, oh yeah, I guess it was your wife. Just completely forget.
That happens all the time. I feel bad too. I think woodwind and like brass and that stuff, like they get a bad rap. Kids are like, oh, I tried to play trumpet and it sounded terrible. That's because that instrument is way harder than picking up a bass guitar or something else. Like those are skilled instruments.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
You know why I chose it in 6th grade? Because my mom's like, hey, you should give it a shot. And she's like, your friends are doing it, maybe give it a shot. I'm like, all right. And she said, what do you want to play? And I saw the clarinet with all those buttons. I saw some of the other things. I saw the trumpet with 3 little buttons on top. I'm like, I could do 3 buttons. It was such a bad idea. There was only 2 of us in that band too. And you could just tell the music, the band instructor would look over at us with just such disdain. Like, oh, I hate these 2 so much because they're so bad.
So I love your mom's parenting style though. Like, hey, all your friends are doing this, you should too. That's
yeah,
great. I love that. That's very different.
Yeah, that changed very quickly. She's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe stick with sports, the thing you love, not the band.
High school, yeah. She's like, don't do what your friends are doing.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, go play baseball. We like.
Hey, but at least you tried though. You got to try it.
Good man.
I did try it. Yeah. All my friends were very kind too. They're like, oh, you can figure it out. It's like, no, I'm not going to figure this out. I just, I'm going to go do something I like. So
kind of like the one year when I tried cheerleading.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Well, this was like, I was like in 4th grade. I don't even know if that counts, but it's you got to try everything. And like right away, the parents are like, maybe you should stick with sports. Maybe you should stick with softball.
We have a similar story here, but it sounds like Jordan, you were a good musician from the beginning.
I don't know about good, but I played for sure.
Yeah.
I was young.
So were you automatically hooked when you started playing, or was there a certain point where you realized like it went from like, hey, this is kind of cool to I actually have a passion for this, and I'm like almost like an obsession?
No, I think, man, it's totally different. Like when we were kids, I don't know how old you guys are, but I think we're pretty close to the same age. I mean, you went to high school with my wife, and
32.
I don't know how old. Okay, I don't want to throw names and ages out there. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
We're all about the same age. I think when we were kids, things were quite a bit different. I mean, there wasn't near as many options, I don't think, as for kids to do then as there are now. Like, I mean, video games were something that we played obviously when we were younger, but there was no like competitive professional thing to aspire to. Like it was just like, I like to play video games,
Right.
So I did play sports and stuff growing up, and I think music was something that I always did, and it was kind of ingrained into just the world that I was in, as far as like I grew up in church and I played in high school and like youth bands and stuff, and it was like cool when I was 15 to be in bands and things. So I played in bands throughout high school. I mostly played sports in school. That was for sure more my focus, and hanging out and partying and stuff. But then when I got out of high school and realized I did not want to do the college thing, that's when I really started to take music a bit more seriously. And I took some breaks from it throughout that time frame, but I don't think there was really ever a time where I was like ignited some sort of like obsessive passion by any means. It was definitely something that I was always doing though, and just kind of morphed organically into a career path, I'd say.
Okay, got it. And have you always done, so please forgive me, like how would you categorize your style of music?
The band that I'm in now, it's most genuinely referred to as like post-hardcore would technically be the term for it, genre. But like, music has so many, especially rock music, it has so many subgenres. It's loud rock music, I guess. There's singing and hollering and all that kind of stuff. But it's definitely in that vein. I didn't grow up playing a lot of that stuff. I did in maybe my later high school years, but like outside of the music that I play, I did a lot of you'd call it for hire type stuff. Like, so when artists go out on the road, like Britney Spears doesn't have a band. She's just an artist, and she'll have different drummers or different bass players and stuff. And so I did a lot of that for a number of years, touring and just supporting other artists as a bass player or as a drummer, but mostly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. Is that a lot of pressure when you do that type of thing, or is it just something you kind of get used to where, I mean, you're bouncing, it's not like you're with like you said, with a set group where you kind of know the flow and how everything works. You might from one artist who has a certain way of doing things to another artist who does it differently. Is there a lot of pressure there, or is that kind of just the name of the game?
Yeah, it kind of is. I mean, I take it back to that softball analogy because it's so good. I mean, you can fill in at left field like for any team, and some teams take it way more seriously on Tuesday
Yeah.
evenings than other teams do. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
you're absolutely
there's
right.
also, but there are also teams who are they should take it more seriously because they are in a more professional manner. If you're playing a semi-pro team versus a rec intramural team, like the vibe is way different. So it really just depends on the work environment. I've played for cover bands where the pressure is extremely low, and then I played for another artist one time where I played with her for a while, but the first time I played with her was at a huge a showcase for record label heads, and we were at a festival in Napa where like Sarah McLachlan and all these people were playing, and we played in a room full
Wow.
of suits, including like Ryan Seacrest and Simon Cowell and like these types of people. And like they're literally not there to enjoy music, they're there to wear a suit, stare at their watch, pretend like they hate you, and decide if they want to put her music onto the radio circuit for the next 12-month calendar year. And so pressure's real high in that because it's just very different. Like this could potentially be a massive opportunity or your biggest failure. So really, or it could be intramural left field on a Tuesday evening where you're hanging out drinking beer. So
Right,
it's tough to
exactly.
say. Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, it's got to say a lot about, like, so you had the opportunity and you were asked to play that show. It's got to say a lot about your reputation, right? Is that kind of how it works in that world where it's like, hey, this is kind of what this means for my career. Let's get this guy or this girl to be a part of this thing because we know we can trust them.
Yeah, there's some of that too. It's sometimes cost efficiency is also a part of it.
Okay.
So really just
Yeah.
that gig I happened to get through. A friend of mine had been playing with her for quite a while. And then they nixed the band that they were with for some personal reasons I don't really know. And then they could have hired a union person, or they could have hired out personally. And he happened to know me, and so just a friend of a friend. A lot of that stuff is that there's lots of networking is a big deal because there's a lot of dudes out there who are monster drummers who are not getting gigs over guys who are okay drummers but are easier to hang out with for 25 days in a row in a van or on a bus or whatever. So there's a little bit of both for sure.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm a better friend and hang than I am a drummer, so that's helped me out.
Okay. I'm sure that's not true. I'm sure you're probably pretty good at the drums too.
I'm a real good hang, Josh. You would
All
know that if you call me back. I don't
Oh,
Josh. I'm just kidding.
he called me out on my own show. I was not expecting that.
That's never happened. I'm sure he would respond to my calls if I called him.
I think, well, now I have no choice. Now I'm scared not to because he's going to call me out on the
I want
air.
to be in a GoPro video, dude.
We'll see what we can do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So do you like, I'm just thinking in my head, like as a person, like this is an early question. We usually don't ask this till the end, but like in terms of advice, like let's say someone is like starting off like as a, they play the guitar or they play or whatever, the piano, and seeing like, how do you start, I guess, putting yourself out there? Like, how do you like get gigs, or how do you like, I don't know, I see people playing in coffee shops. Like, how do you start that circuit? Because there's so many talented people out there and they just don't know where to start or what to do.
Yeah, honestly, I think it really comes down to really just being it's kind of tough right now. COVID makes things real different. So as before, it'd be like just the more present you are in the scene or the community that you're a part of, the more people you meet and the more people you connect with and develop relationships along the way. And that's really the honest, like only way to get into stuff, because you can shred on guitar, but if no one's ever met you or heard you before, well, then it doesn't really do a whole lot for you, unfortunately. But yeah, networking is the big one, man. Just being out and connecting with people as much as possible. Or even now during COVID stuff, like it's really cool. There's a lot of downsides to COVID for a lot of people and a lot of industries, but music has been one that if you were currently full-time touring when COVID began back in March, as far as not when it began, but when obviously like this kind of like lockdown, shelter in place stuff started to begin. If you were full-time touring at that point, it is a rough season for you. If you were already established in a career, because it's just, there's nothing going on. Live events and mass gatherings are not happening. However, if you were on your way up and starting out, man, it's such a good time to start out, because we're really in a place right now where like the platform has been completely leveled, whereas like artists with tons of support and backing had access to way more than you. They're literally on the same playing field right now, where they might have some more backing as far as like presence on social media and streaming platforms and stuff like that, but it's really leveled out the game quite a bit. And now's a great time to be promoting yourself if you're a guitarist, even things down to just whether it's live videos or Insta stories or putting stuff out on the gram. Like, it's a great time to be able to promote yourself. There's a guy by the name of Mancius, who is he was Tori Kelly's guitarist before she kind of blew up, and he's from a place called Musicians Institute down in Southern California. And so it's a school specifically for musicians to go to who are wanting to be full-time professional musicians or producers and other things in that industry. And he was basically just putting himself out on Instagram quite a bit. And because of the ability to, with Instagram, I mean, your music can be in front of who knows who. There's a I don't know what you would call it. It's called NAMM, and it's for music retailers to put out all of the new cool tech that they have for the year, basically, and everybody shows up. Like, you walk around and you're walking through like John Mayer and you're walking through Dave Grohl, like all these like huge figureheads in music. They're just all there hanging out to see new gear. And so one of these years, a couple of years ago now, John Mayer was there and he was being interviewed at a guitar table, and they were asking questions and they're like, "Who's your favorite guitar player?" And he said, "Mancius is the best guitar player in the world." Just a kid from Instagram. Like, and John Mayer, one of the best guitar players in the game, knows who this dude is. And so you're seeing a lot more of that right now. And so even with COVID in place, I think social media and just putting yourself out there is a great way to get yourself known, get gigs, meet people, that sort of stuff.
Wow, that's awesome. And then pre-COVID, did you do like any for yourself, any house parties or anything? I heard that's a big thing too.
Yeah, the house scene stuff. It just depends on what music scene you're in. Like, it's very niche as far as that stuff goes. But yeah, I've played tons of house shows. House shows are fun, man. College kids love to be in a dirty house instead of a nice venue, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. It's cool. It's like more intimate. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Well, I imagine, kind of going along with everything you're talking about as far as social media and the amount of opportunities that people have, especially musicians, to, really take advantage of this. It's a difficult situation for everybody right now, but they actually have a huge opportunity in front of them. I imagine that once things kind of get back to a better place and once live shows are taking place again, there's kind of going to be probably this massive, request and need for, like you said, people that are just maybe local musicians and someone needs a drummer. It's kind of like a massive opportunity is probably right around the corner at some point, right?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's so hard to say with this stuff. It seems so back and forth every day. And there's a real element. I mean, and again, it's very niche, but like, depending on what type of music scene you're a part of, it might flourish when we get back. I think just because we know everything at this point in 2020 going into 2021 is very politicized, and it's really tough to navigate. And so you've got scenes where your house party college age kid who might be from a more liberal background and the music has more of a liberal background, you might have everything open back up and those shows still not be well attended, and there might be a cut in it. Whereas maybe country music, where it tends to be a bit more of a conservative backing, you might have mass amounts of opportunity. Yes, it's really tough to say what that's going to look like.
Sure, that makes sense. What's the most bizarre show you've been requested to play at?
Oh my gosh, I played in Antioch, California, at a bar that used to be a strip club, and which is not that weird if you think about a music world, but like Antioch is hopefully nobody from Antioch is listening. It's a rough
find out.
Place. They're in the comments right now. I can feel it. It's a weird place. And I remember going downstairs, and I was actually, ironically, I was filling in for a Christian band of all things at that time, and walking downstairs, they had signs that said leave your morality upstairs. And so it was just like this real weird. And I played, my drums were directly in front of, they referred to it as the steam box, which is where people would dance behind glass and the glass would steam, and you could, it was really, I didn't touch a lot of stuff while I was there. This is pre-COVID, but I'm positive that's potentially where COVID came from. I know there's theories, but
that's awesome. But you had no idea, you had no idea going into it though, right? It's like,
no,
hey,
I don't think anybody did. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, that's pretty bizarre. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not what I was expecting, but yeah, I like that. It's good.
And good. I don't know what else. That's probably more of a location thing than anything. I've played some weird spots, birthday parties, and weird places, but that's probably one of the more weird locations.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite location?
Oh yeah.
Locally, man, it's tough to say. There's a lot of venues who've not responded the way that some people have wanted to as far as COVID things go. So maybe my favorite venue a couple of months ago is different than what it is now. So I don't even know.
Okay.
Honestly, any venue is my favorite venue right now in 2020, where we can't go play shows. Any venue that could safely be open right now would be my favorite venue.
There you go. That's true.
Yeah,
the Boardwalk is like the classic Sacramento place. It's been cool since I was a kid, and that's like
I was gonna say
I saw some of my favorite bands there, and some like bands that were very small at the time that are massive now play there. And that was the first real venue I got to play when I was 15 or 16. So it's definitely probably my favorite if I had to choose.
Very nice.
that's cool. Yeah, I grew up in Orangeville, and so every Friday, Saturday night, you would drive down Greenback, and you just knew there was a show because there's like these massive lines and groups, right outside the doors. So no, I've actually never been there though. I grew up there and never been there inside.
It's fine. It's a bar. It smells. It's cool.
That's what everybody said. The description you just gave is basically the same description I've heard for 32 years from other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Which is most venues. Like I have favorite venues from other cities that I've seen like on posters and like magazines and stuff since I was a kid. And then I've gone to and played them like, this place is like a cement room with some black paint on the walls. It's pretty gross. Like it's not cool. It's very
glamorous. Yeah, there was a really good photographer in the building that night. Yeah.
Always. You make a picture black and white in a room full of people, it looks dope.
There you go.
Now, Jordan, awesome. You sing too.
I do. That's the actual only thing that I do in this band, which is new for me. I've never done that before. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, so along with that, so obviously I'm assuming you're writing too. I think that goes without saying, right? So, how do you feel like this pandemic? Because I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy, and so so I listen to a lot of podcasts, hosted by stand-up comedians, and one of the things that seems to be coming up quite a bit right now is the fact that the creativity for some people, it's like it's been a real struggle because they can't get on stage and do like the Comedy Store down in LA and these different spots. And some people are like, yeah, but it's actually challenged my creativity, and I've actually been more creative now because like it's forced me to. So you as a musician, how do you feel? Like, do you feel like this pandemic has helped or hurt the creative process for you personally?
For me personally, I don't know that it's had too much of an effect really. It's so interesting, like you were saying, like I'm big on stand-up is my thing as well, and comedy works so differently because you've got guys and girls and people who are working out routines before they really go showcase them. Songwriting can be that way. There's people who will workshop stuff in like coffee shop settings and that sort of stuff, but in a full band setting or anything that's more popular music based, you really kind of polish it up 100% before you put it out there live most of the time. There's exceptions to that rule, but even for me, like writing has never been it's a very time consuming process for me. Like the album that we're putting out right now, we started recording it 2 years ago, and it was basically completely finished and music was all done 2 years ago. And then it was a weird experience I went into, and I'd never sang fronted a band really before like this. And so there's a interesting process with like music where you record and then it kind of sounds pretty bad because you do things like piece by piece, not bad, but on a personal level. Like have you ever sang in your car and been like, I sound dope, like I'm singing along with
all the
Britney
time
Spears or whatever. And then I love Britney's my queen, dude. But you're like singing along and then you get somewhere else and you're like, I'm gonna sing out loud, and you hear yourself and you're like, oh, that's not as good as I remember. Like this is brutal. There's a lot covering things up. So music is kind of that way in the studio. You go in and drums kind of go first, and then you layer, you do bass, and then guitar and stuff. And so listening to your drums by themselves or listening to your voice soloed out, it's really it can be daunting to hear yourself so vulnerable. And this was the first time that I'd ever gone through that process, and I was waiting for that feeling to be like, oh, this sucks, this is me, someone's going to work their magic and fix it, and I'll come back later and it'll be like auto-tuned up and be great. And I didn't have that experience. We were moving through the music and I was like, yo, this sounds dope, which is not a normal feeling for most people, at least for me. And so I got really, really nervous at that point. I've played drums my whole life, so I feel very comfortable doing that. then getting to the point of knowing like I'm gonna have to track vocals to this soon, and I literally like had a bit of a panic attack. Like we tracked vocals for one day and I freaked out, and I was like, hey, I need to come back in like a couple of weeks, and the producer was like, yeah, no problem. And then I didn't come back for 2 years, and so it was just a real long process of like
crazy
working through some of that stuff.
Wow.
But we finished now, so all that to say, like pandemic, I couldn't really tell you honestly if it's affected me, just because in a normal great scenario for most people, I still struggled. So now I feel pretty good now. I'm riding momentum high. I'm good.
That's awesome. So how do you, like, what's the ideal, 'cause I love hearing how like people's process, especially musicians, because I feel like anytime you ask a musician what their process is, it's just completely different. So when it comes to your whole process, like, do you like to be alone in a quiet place? Do you like to be at a coffee shop? Do you like to be driving and, you know, saying some things on your voice notes on your phone? Like what's your preferred, like, perfect, you know, method?
It's changed over the years, but most like the thing that I've most like kind of found some rhythm in is I kind of demo out all the music by itself, just sitting with a guitar, and then you do a thing called MIDI, pretend drums, basically, where you kind of digitally put some drums together and piece all that together. And then what I'll do is I'll literally take a microphone and I'll la like nonsensical syllables over top of things to find just some like, okay, what is the natural flow and what is the music kind of asking for, sort of thing, and figuring out just the tone and vibe. And then once you have a melody that seems catchy enough as a non-lyrical thing, I'm like, okay, this seems useful, and then kind of trying to push some lyrics to it. And it's interesting, sometimes even lyrics will come out of that as you're like la-la-laing. Something will sound like a word, or something will sound like a phrase, or your ear will catch something and get stuck with it, and then kind of just working backwards from there.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That's so wild. This all sounds completely complicated to me.
I know.
You know what I mean?
and then just something that just was in my mind. So the people who are in your band with you, like how did that happen? How did that come about?
Most of those guys I've known for, well, there's only two of them besides me.
Okay.
It's one guy named Jesse Mancius, who's a guy that I've known for years and years. One of the first bands that I was in after high school, one of the cringiest things I've ever done in my life was that project. But I met Jesse from it, and we've just kept in touch over the years. And he's been really successful in music as well, and been a part of some bigger bands, and done the whole touring and studio thing. And he also texts, and he's just insanely talented. He's kind of the guy that I've been trying to be my whole life. He's a couple of years older than me, and so he's just like this guy who's always a few steps ahead of me, and so I'm just trying to keep up with him. And I finally convinced him to be in a project with me again. So
nice.
So that's him. And so I met him through that. And then the other guy's name is Brett, and I've just recently met him via the pandemic. So I guess in that regard, it's come together. I met him, a friend of ours who I've played music with for a number of years now, produced a project that him and his wife do together called You Me Gravity, which is like a Civil Wars kind of folky indie vibe. They're super great. I met him through Instagram. He was posting videos of himself playing guitar, sounding awesome for no reason. And I asked him about a specific piece of gear that he was using, and we messaged back and forth, and then we started playing Call of Duty together every single night for the last 9 months. It's like a high school dating relationship, and then we never stopped texting. And yeah, I literally I've been in a band with him for 4 months technically, and I just met him in person for the first time a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's wild.
Yeah, it's super weird.
Well, like you said, it's just like, it just again proves your point earlier about how like the whole industry has changed, right? Like you can do that and just not meet this person forever and still put out a quality project and have no idea. You know, I mean, it's just a weird thing.
Yeah, and we didn't even bond over anything like music, honestly. Like, I mean, there was a little bit of a music element, but we played a video game that we had in common together. Something new for me. I'd picked up video games during quarantine because I hadn't owned a video game console in 12 years. So I picked one up because I was at home a bunch, and he happens to have a kid about the same age as our oldest kid, and he's married and I'm married. And so it's just one of those, like, we just bonded on a personal level and really liked the dude. And it just so happened that he played music, and then an opportunity formed from it, which is exactly what I was referring to earlier. There's so much that happens with like personal connections that turn into possibilities. And the regular job world's no different. Lots of people get jobs in lots of places that they might not have been qualified for necessarily. Right. Somebody liked them.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. I want to say this. I want to pause just this conversation really quick because I feel like this needed to be said earlier and I just failed to do so. So Deb and I, like I mentioned earlier, have done over 115 podcast episodes at this point between this one and our other podcast. I have to say, Jordan, you have the best beard we've ever had on the podcast.
Yeah.
How many beards have you had?
It's not important. You know, I mean, now that I say that,
I'll take it.
I'm trying to think, maybe one or two, but no, it's no contest, man. By far the best beard. I feel like I had to put that out there. People will see this, so they'll see the beard in all of its glory. But you know,
you've got the best baby face I've ever podcasted with. You got a chin that was built for cartoons. You look like a superhero. You got a great jawline.
Oh, stop that! I might cry. That's like, I don't believe any of that, but I do feel really good, and I'm gonna take that one soundbite and just play it for my wife. Like, you know what Jordan said about me?
Yeah,
don't get jealous.
True.
Yeah,
let her know. You got.
I'll let her know. Yeah. She's like, that's fine. Go for it.
I met Rachel. She seems pretty relaxed.
Yeah, she's like, I'm not worried about this.
Yeah.
But hey, who's your favorite stand-up comedian? I should have asked that earlier.
100% without a doubt, no question, Dave Chappelle. And I know that's such a cliche answer.
Heck no, that's mine. That's mine too.
Well, it's every comedian's favorite comedian.
Yeah.
Like, he's the dude. Not only I'm obsessed with him. Like, I've seen everything he's done, and I'm like, so have I. But I could almost guarantee I've watched every interview he's ever done on YouTube. Like, I have an obsession with him. He's brilliant.
Oh, I love it. In fact, I got my wife onto his stuff a few years ago. It was actually when his first Netflix special. Mm-hmm. We watched it that night, and we've been hooked ever since. I mean, I've been hooked for a long time, but she's been hooked since that moment.
Totally. I've really enjoyed the last couple of things that he's put out via Instagram, just his Insta story things. He's put up 15-20 minute long. I just appreciate that there's lots of great comedians out there that are really funny and have really cool spins on stuff that applies to people. But Dave Chappelle, he really transcends comedy and is more of a social commentary that can be humorous at times. And he's so unbelievably insightful. And I find him to be, I know, controversial for a lot of people, but very balanced on a lot of things. You could never really peg him down as uber progressive or uber conservative, which I really, really appreciate in a cultural and societal climate that we're currently in, where there's so much polarizing. It's really great and refreshing to hear intelligent people who can find themselves balanced over a myriad of issues. And I absolutely am obsessed with him. I love that guy.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm glad that was your answer, because and I feel the same way. I was telling someone the other day, to your point about him being, him having a very balanced opinion on things, but a very strong opinion, but it's very balanced. And it's funny because I feel like in those settings, he might make a joke about one side, and then the other side is laughing hysterically. It's like, but wait, because he's going to swing back the other way and get you guys too. It's like no one's ever safe with him, and he's just the best, and just the best storyteller in the game, in my opinion.
He's so informed. He is not he's not a tangent type comedian, which those have their place and they're entertaining as well.
Sure.
But I genuinely walk away from his stand-ups feeling like I gained so much insight and wisdom into things after listening to him speak. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I'm completely. We could talk this whole podcast about Dave Chappelle.
100%.
I won't do that to everybody here.
I was gonna say, Jordan, would you ever do stand-up?
I have been actually told my whole life that I should do stand-up. Yeah.
Have you considered it?
No, not at all.
That's a terrifying thought to me. I would never want to do it.
I'd thrive on it. I love it.
You got to do it then, man.
You study Dave enough. You just got to step in and channel him.
It's a tough career. I don't know how people do it, man. It's a hard gig. It's a hard gig.
Yeah.
Not only that, but you're so scrutinized these days, man. Even on any side of things, it's a bummer. It's a rough gig.
Well, I feel like it's different, because sometimes, like I said, or you had mentioned that comedy and being in a band or musicians are so different. There's some crossover, but it's different in a lot of ways. And I feel like, to your point earlier, I feel like it would be really difficult for a comedian to, I mean, it's possible, but for them to blow up on Instagram the same way a musician could, because I feel like that medium, it's so much different live, you know what I mean? And so music is too, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe what do you think about that? Because I feel like I can appreciate someone playing music online, and it's going to be maybe a little closer to what it would be live, rather than I've seen some comedians where I'm like, I don't find this person funny, and then I go see them live and they're hilarious. It just doesn't
Totally.
translate the same. But do you feel like that's the same for music, or?
It's hard because I think at least the stuff that I've read from, I listen to a lot of podcasts and a lot of comedians and stuff like that. Like Whitney Cummings has a phenomenal podcast.
Hers
She has
is awesome.
On. She's great. And
Yeah, she's really good.
The Nerdist with Chris Hardwick and a lot of that stuff. They've got some comedians on there all the time. And one of the like common reoccurring themes that you hear from comedians is the difference between them and musicians is that comedians can only do a bit one time and then nobody wants to hear it anymore. Like if you do this bit on Letterman or you do this bit on your special, that's it, it's done. Whereas musicians, you could do the same thing over and over and over again. So whereas I could blow up from a song that was on my Instagram that ended up on a TV show that ended up on the radio that people are hearing hundreds of times, people show up wanting to hear that. Whereas a comedian, if you heard their joke on Instagram and that's what got you into them, you wouldn't want to hear it when you show up. So I think you're right. You probably could blow up from Instagram, but it might actually like honestly cripple you in some ways that it's tough to actually bounce back from. Well,
it's almost like so the person I always think of when it comes to what you just said about you have one bit and that bit is the thing, it's Bert Kreischer. You know, he tells that the machine story, and he's like, you listen to his podcast, he's like, anywhere I go, everybody's just yelling that one story. He's like, so I tell it, but you kind of get, you know, it's a weird thing because that obviously that story kills. It's a hilarious story that he tells, but it also kind of like handcuffs you too. You know what I mean? In some ways. So yeah, it's a very strange thing. Art in general, man, is kind of a crazy thing to get into because it's so subjective, and you know, you can kind of go any which way you want with it, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Well,
yeah. Jordan, I've always wondered about like just anyone who sings or can sing, especially at your level. Do you take singing lessons, or have you ever?
I don't. I probably should. I would not call myself, again, a singer by any means. I do sing a substantial amount.
Okay.
I really don't even consider myself. I feel so lofty talking about myself in this manner. I would never classify myself as a musician to any degree. I very much use the tools and skills that I have as a conduit to get in front of people. I think I am far more charismatic than I am a musician. I'm okay. I can get by and fake my way through, but the majority of that comes from I thrive on stage. I really do like being in front of people. I like performing. And so I think that comes across to people when they watch me, and it's easy to, especially if you're not super into the musical side of things, it's really easy for me to, I would say like almost like a magician, very sleight of hand, like smoke and mirrors. Like I can convince you that I'm better at this because of my personality and charisma. But luckily for me, the majority of the music that I do it's really more of a conduit for the content. I am really trying to say stuff that is socially, culturally engaging, or much like a Dave Chappelle. I'm not on that level by any means, but really wanting to have some social commentary that causes dialogue. So I don't really have to be good at guitar. I just have to be good enough to keep your attention for 25 minutes. And man, I'm way better at that than I am at music.
Yeah.
Hey, that's smart though, that you pay attention and know your audience and speak to your audience in that manner.
Sure. I'm good at reading a room. I'm discerning to a certain degree. So it's helpful.
So speaking of being discerning, when you're putting so you guys have a new album that's going to be coming out. I don't think there's a release date yet, but soon, right?
It's not officially out. We're going to start pre-orders here after the new year. The Christmas time is a tough time to put out any music, so we were trying to put it out beforehand, and then I don't know if you guys heard, but this was an election year, so there was
really
there was a lot. I mean, I didn't hear about it, but there was a lot going on, so we decided to push back. So middle of February is looking like there's no set day, but we'll start pre-orders beginning middle of January, and then the album will release middle of February.
Okay. So, like I said, you're mentioning just being discerning of your audience and all of that. So obviously I would imagine, we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I would imagine on your album that there is some stuff. Well, I mean, you even posted about it a little while ago, because like you had mentioned, you did music at your church. And then I think you put out a post a little while ago, basically saying, hey, I can't remember verbatim what you said, but to the effect of, hey, things are changing a little bit for me. The direction I'm going is a little bit different. You may hear me say things that you're not used to me saying.
And then I linked them straight to my OnlyFans after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the post you're talking about.
That's the one. Cool. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Not a big deal, but we'll include that OnlyFans link in our bio.
Man, shout out. Y'all are real ones.
That's right. But no, so like you have to, as a musician, I think it'd be silly to assume that you just go out there and say, I'm going to say whatever I feel like. Obviously, you knew that there's some people in your life that may hear something you say about a specific topic. Maybe it's politics, maybe it's some social justice issue that they may or may not agree with. So how, I guess it's a long-winded question, but like how much of that goes into, because I mean, as an artist, you can't really be too concerned, because that I imagine would dilute your art if you always take what your audience's feelings are and place it into your art. But you also want to be aware of how it's going to hit their ears, right? Because you want them to receive it ultimately, right? Even if they disagree with you, you want them to be open to hearing it. So like all that to say, like, how does all of that stuff that I just said go into your process when you're promoting the music and when you're writing the music?
Yeah, it's different for everybody. I mean, because I think there very much so are people that are out there like, I'm going to say whatever I want and I'm going to shock value and I'm going to get as much attention as possible. There's iconic artists over the years who that's been very successful for them. I mean,
sure.
Think of your Marilyn Mansons and your guys like that who made long time careers out of being shocking. That's not really my goal. I've never been that kind of person. I care a lot about people. And so I have learned the hard way over the years of where the line is of saying whatever you want and also being understanding of those that listen. It's tough. For me, I take a lot from guys like Dave Chappelle, where I really want to find myself on the progressive end of conversations that benefit people at large. I never want to be in a place where I am sacrificing, where there's sacrificing people on the altar of a stance or an opinion or that type of stuff. I think, and it's really hard to navigate when we're talking social justice issues, because there are people on the other side of conversations, and it's really tough to dig into. And for me, where I've kind of landed at this point is, it might feel different when people actually listen to music depending on who they are and what they are, but I would really like to be able to have conversations that push the needle in multiple people groups or in multiple cultural circles. I want to be progressive and challenge the ideas that come with traditional thinking. I don't think traditional thinking is necessarily tied to a political party or an idea specifically, but the idea that we should keep things the way that they are because that's the way we've always done them. I think most people our age, but generally speaking, I definitely don't subscribe to that. I don't think that's a healthy way to look at anything. However, at the same time, let's not change things just for the sake of changing things. There are systems and things in place that are beneficial to people, and we shouldn't just shake them up for the fact of that system is associated with people who I don't care about in this spectrum. It's really gray area. And so really, I'm just wanting to push conversation forward, not just for one group of people, but people on all sides of the conversation.
Well, I just found my soundbite. That was really good.
That was really good.
That was good. Yeah. It made my life easy. I appreciate that.
Yeah, great.
No, that's really good, man. And I, because you do have a lot of people out there that the whole goal is to shock. And I guess in one sense, that is a way to market yourself. It's a choice you're making. And I think some people just want to, kind of stir the pot. But it's like, sometimes I think people, whether we're talking about athletes or musicians or, any kind of artists, when they have a platform, sometimes I think people forget like their platform, or they don't think enough of their platform to realize how much that they may have a small platform compared to someone like Drake, right? But
sure,
you still have a platform, and that platform is hitting people's ears, and they're seeing your posts and reading what you're saying. So sometimes I feel like we forget that, making the best use of that platform and saying things that, like you said, is going to start conversation is really important. And if you have the talent and the ability to use a platform like that, then in my opinion, you got to use it for those types of things. But, I guess it's hard. Some people don't feel the need to do that.
Yeah. And it's a scary time to, go ahead.
No, please go. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a scary time for people to speak out on anything, which is both
Sure.
fortunate and unfortunate. I'm glad that people are thinking about things before they're saying them. I think that is a key component to being an adult human being in society. Now we have leaders and people who still don't feel the need to think about what they say or tweet before they throw it out into the world, which is everyone's prerogative, and that's fine. But at the same time, I think there is the other side of that conversation where we can't crucify people because they said the wrong thing unintentionally, or we're trying to communicate something and it might not have come across the way that they were intending to. There's got to be room for error for people. If we want people to, in any given circumstance or conversation, shift the way that they're thinking or the way that they've done things for the past 30, 40, 50, 60 years, we have to understand that that comes with an element of being willing to let people grow and adapt into that. And if we crucify anybody the second they make a mistake on their first step of day one, it's not beneficial for anybody. It's killing the progress that you intend, and that's just so unhealthy. And so I do understand why people don't want to say things and don't want to post things, but I'm just loud and obnoxious enough to do it enough for everybody. So we're good. I got it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Jordan's got your back. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, I was
I'll
gonna
say
say
dumb
you have a
things on your
creative.
behalf.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a creative way of doing it, though. You have it's very. I think it's what word am I looking for? It's just it's easy for someone to just type something or tweet something like you or whatever, and it comes across different in a artistic way, like your music or someone's writing a book or even like a pocket, like it comes across just a little more meaningful, I think, if that's the word I'm looking for. So anyway, I think that's a good way to use your platform. So we just
Let's hope. Yeah.
Yeah. So is the new album, is it EP? Is it a full length album, or what's the deal?
It's somewhere in between. Like, it's like 6 songs, and one of them's more of I'd call it abstract. There's some more like some spoken type stuff where it's some pieces of a speech from Edward Morrow from years and years ago.
Okay.
So 6 songs total is what it comes down to. Yeah.
Got it. Cool. Another thing I'm really interested in when I talk to artists or creatives is what your process is like for criticism, because I imagine that, because like you said earlier, that when you were listening to yourself, it's like, this is actually pretty dope, and then that kind of worries you because it's like you don't often feel that way because you're typically, artists are their own worst critics, right? But
Yeah.
do you, when it comes to criticism, I guess I'm talking about like constructive criticism, do you have like a small circle of people that you always send whatever project you're working on to, and then you just know that they will be brutally honest one way or the other? So it's like, if they say it's dope, it's probably pretty dope, and if they say it's trash, then you need to go back to the drawing board. Do you have what's that circle look like for you?
Yeah, pretty dead on to what you described. I definitely have a handful of those people. The hard part comes with, just like anything, I would imagine the people struggle with imposter syndrome and certain things. Like, you got that homie who's like, yo, this is killer, and you trust his opinion on every single thing ever in life until he tells you something you did is killer, and you're like, nah, this guy's full of it. Like, that's not,
Right.
there's no way. And you just
Yeah.
rip yourself to pieces. So it's
Right.
a tough process, and it's not one that I navigate super well. I do well with
Oh, interesting.
somewhat constructive criticism for the most part, but as far as like my own dealings with the things that I create, I'm extremely up and down emotionally with stuff. So yeah, it's hard to navigate some of those opinions sometimes, even if they're good ones and you can trust them. It's hard for me to navigate them.
Yeah, it's not easy. I don't envy you at all, man. Just the idea of putting an album together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like you have that criticism come at you, like you said, for 6 songs, 6 different times. It's going to come at you
Yeah.
potentially, and it's like, oh man.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've come to appreciate about the process now is there are lots of people who write music for the sake of music, and whether that be popular music or whatever, everybody's motives are different. But for me, like, at the end of the day, I feel okay right now. The music is something that and it's the aesthetic of it and the sonic quality of it and those sorts of things, I can get a little bit tied up about. But for the first time putting out music, I am very confident in the things that I'm saying. And so at the end of the day, if somebody doesn't like the things that I'm saying, it's really easy for me to be like, okay, well, this probably just wasn't for you then, or maybe it is for you, but you're not in the headspace to hear it necessarily.
Right.
Or you're the person I'm talking about. And
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
Would you consider yourself like your worst critic? You know the saying, like you're your own worst critic.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think everybody. I don't know anybody that's not, honestly. Maybe they're out there, but I haven't met them. Or maybe they're just too good and positive people to want to hang out with me.
Yeah.
I just need more critical friends, and that's who I surround myself with.
Maybe. No, I'm with you. I can't think of a person that I know that's, does stuff like that. That's not their own worst critic. I think it's hard not to. Sometimes I feel like there's people out there that are so harsh on themselves that even when they do receive positive criticism from people they can trust, it's just like, maybe, but there you go. See? Yeah.
I feel it.
Yeah, it'd be tough. I was gonna ask. So when it comes to like putting together an entire project, so you have the artwork, you have the sequencing, all that stuff. Like what? Obviously, writing the music, performing the music, recording it. What do you find is your favorite part, and then what's your least favorite part?
I really enjoy the visual aspect of things. There's a thing called is it synesthesia? I always pronounce it incorrectly, and it might
big word. I have no idea.
So essentially what it is there's a small part of the population who sees and hears music, and they hear music and they see colors and they see that sort of stuff. And I didn't even know this was a thing, honestly, until a couple of months ago, until someone brought it up to me, and I was like, I have never heard of this before in my life. So whenever I hear music, whether it's my own or somebody else's, I connect to visuals very, very quickly. So that's always been a fun part for me. It's just been real seamless in putting that stuff together and having specific visions in mind for things. I do not enjoy the writing, recording process too much. I like when it's over. I feel real good when it's over. And then I don't like when we put it out. I like when I get to sit with it by myself before sending it to anybody. So it's a bit of an up and down with that. But yeah, so probably I would say the writing process is real, because I'm my own worst critic. The writing process can be real stressful at times, and wanting to put out something that is a good reflection of what I'm trying to say and an accurate depiction of that can be pretty overwhelming at times.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm with you. I mean, obviously I've never recorded an album. I don't plan to, but I do enjoy the visual element of music. I mean, I always miss, like when I used to get CDs, I miss the, you know what I'm talking about? Like I miss the insert with the album art and then the fold outs and like how creative that used to get. Like I miss that part of it. Like it's weird. I used to get really excited about seeing how they put that whole thing together. You don't really get that as much. I guess in a sense you get it on social media. It's way different, but like you get, some color schemes and
there's something about holding a tangible piece of creativity in your hand and getting to read along and look along while you listen to the album. That was my favorite part about buying an album. I would listen to it straight through the first time and read the lyrics and read the liner notes. And I still love liner notes when I can find them on stuff that I've listened to. Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah. And I remember, so I can't remember what the name of your last project was, but I just remember seeing that and I immediately thought of To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick. That's what, like the artwork reminded me a lot of that. I think it was your last one. Maybe it was the one before that. I can't remember. I just remember that. Yeah, one of them. But it was like, oh, that was really cool. But you could tell that, like, all that being said, you could tell that you put a lot of thought and effort into the symbolism and the, the meaning behind the album cover. I remember I was at, where were we? Oh, you guys were doing like a firework booth, and we bought some fireworks from you guys. And I mentioned that. You're like, cool, man. It's like, yeah, that project didn't, go over as well with some people, or that artwork didn't go over as well with some people, but I'm glad you liked it. Because you're one of the few.
That's from the last Lost Things record.
Okay, it was. I thought it was cool, but
next one will go over even less well, I'm sure.
Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. I'm hyped on it. I love it. It's a good time.
Oh man, I can't wait to.
I'll shoot it over to you when we're done. You'll understand.
Okay, perfect.
It's just not out anywhere for anybody to see. I wanted to release it sooner, just to be controversial and lame. But there's a. I don't want to name any names. There's an organization, we'll call them locally, who would put out an album that was very similar to the artwork of our album's artwork, except ours is it's very antithetical in relationship to that. So I wanted to put it out sooner in response to that, but I was advised not to. So
I was advised not to.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, I guess that kind of goes along with the people that you have in your life that are, the constructive criticism about your projects. You probably have people there that are like, hey, maybe, don't do this or don't do that. Maybe, you know what I'm saying? That's probably important as an artist.
Yeah, Jesse, the guy that plays guitar with us, his girlfriend Ashley is brilliant on the promotional and marketing side of things, and I really lean heavily into her and Jess for a lot of stuff, just because I'm trying to say things and want to do stuff, that like whatever it is that you're doing, there really is a smart way to go about things. Just because you have a good message or because you have whatever the thing is, there's a wrong place and a wrong time to do the right thing. You know what I mean? And so they've been really, really helpful in that. And I have a handful of people in my life like that I really do really lean into, just because I know that I'm so like, I can be a bit of a disruptive character. I like to be disruptive. I enjoy being disruptive, which is why this type of project suits me really, really well. However, I don't want to be disruptive for the sake of disruption. I want to be disruptive for the sake of progression. So
that's good. That's really good. Go ahead, Deb.
Well, something that was on my mind, Jordan, going back to, how you were, talking about Dave Chappelle, favorite comedian, hands down. Now what about like a musician or artist, or is there someone that like you grew up looking up to, someone that has had like a huge influence on your life?
Oh yeah, Jesse and the Rippers, Uncle Jesse from Full House. That was my guy. That's it, dude. Straight up, man. John Stamos in the flesh, man. He is a hunk of Greek love. He's a beautiful man. Sometimes I just scroll through Instagram for no reason other than to just feel bad about myself while feeling good about myself. It's rough, dude. He's a wild ride, that babe.
That's awesome. Not what I was expecting at all. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. I love the Hillary Duff album. I got some weird loves, man.
That's awesome.
Well, you're a big, just based on social media, you're a big like reality TV show fan too, aren't you?
Oh, girl, Jersey Shore is my
Jersey Shore.
Are you? Yo,
yes.
We could stop right now and that's all I talk about. I think I just love that show so much. I rewatched the series over and over again.
What's your favorite on Jersey Shore, you mean? What's your favorite season?
I couldn't even pick one. Anything but the last season, because the last season was so bunk when Snooki was pregnant. It was so boring.
Yeah.
So
my favorite one, I think, I don't know, season 3 maybe. It's when Ron and Sam were just hot mess.
Every season. Yeah, they get worse and worse as it goes. I love it.
Well, there was one where Sam left. Like it was a hot mess, but it was so just drama entertaining. Anyway.
It's so spicy.
We could probably
watch the Family Vacation stuff?
No, I haven't seen those yet. Are those good?
I just got into them because they were only on like Real TV, and I'm 20. It's 2020. No one has Real TV, so I started watching them. But Hulu or somebody started offering them, or NBC's app started offering them for free. And I got through the first season, and they're like, "Okay, now you have to pay." But so I watched the first season recently, dude. It is out of control. It's so good.
Oh man,
Sam's not even there, and Ron's still raging about Sam. It's great, dude.
What? He is? Okay.
Yeah, straight up. You gotta watch. Hit me up after.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Yeah, Josh.
But as far as musicians,
I
don't
want to talk about.
This is all beyond me. I hate reality TV, so I'm sorry.
Me too. I say that. I don't mean it.
I definitely mean it.
Kardashians as well.
Wait, what'd you say? Kardashians?
I love the Kardashians.
I'm going through the whole series right now. Josh, we're gonna hang on, Josh. We're gonna.
I was just saying, I feel like we just started another podcast. Like, I feel like it's Jordan and Deb's podcast about reality TV. Like I feel like good things are starting here. Yeah.
Shout out. I'm ready, dude.
My roommates make fun of me so much because they're like, "Okay, what season are you on?" I'm like, "I'm on season 13." They're like, "Oh, okay, you have a ways to go." I haven't. I stopped. Well, like I stopped watching it a long time ago, so I started from the very beginning a few months ago, and so now I'm on season 13, and just got.
I'm not up to date by any means. I enjoy the Kardashians as an idea more than an ongoing TV show. I just love what they are. They're so interesting.
Oh, it's hilarious. I mean, my friends make fun of me. I don't care. I love that family. I think they're hilarious. The show will not be the same without Scott Disick. I don't care what anyone says. It just I don't know. I can't. They're hilarious. Anyway.
I'm with you.
We could probably talk about that for another hour.
Yeah, I'm with it. Sorry. So musicians.
No, like I said,
those guys.
New podcast coming soon. Jordan White and Deb McCollum.
Comments.
Yeah.
Musicians. There's tons of them. I mean, Pauly D, the DJ, is on top of that list. But somebody who I really, the guy who actually produced the record that we just did, his name's Drew Owens, and he's so underrated in the music world. He's produced a lot of bands that have done really well, and he's got some great albums under his belt. But the music that he actually did himself before full-time producing is some of my favorite. He's a beautiful lyricist. The man he's really an anomaly in the way that he merges a very, very analytical and intelligent outlook on the world with a very poetic type of expression, which is really rare to find. You find people who are more analytical versus someone who is more abstract in the way that they view things, and typically they're not great at portraying things in a more ethereal manner, or a way that lends itself to imagery and things that you would associate with music and art. And he is really just a combination of the two. He's a phenomenal producer as well. He's brilliant, but he's one of the most intelligent human beings I've ever met, but also one of the most prolific writers. And that guy's really inspired me a lot, and I gained a lot from working with him. And then plenty of others. Dustin Kensrue is another guy that I really enjoy, who's definitely on that level. And I love Britney Spears. She's a bop.
Yeah. Do you follow her Instagram?
Bro, yeah.
It's a weird situation, right?
I
think everybody is.
Yeah, man.
Oh.
She's throwing up yellow fags everywhere.
Yeah. I follow her just because I'm so concerned for her. I just want to make sure she's okay.
Agreed. I'm with you.
So we have just two more questions for you, and then we'll get you out of here, because we want to be respectful of your time. But Deb, I'm gonna kind of pass the rock to you on this one. So in our other podcast, you have a signature question, and I feel like that would be a great question to ask Jordan here. We don't have too much crossover with that podcast, but like, I think I would be interested to hear that question. I don't know about you, Deb, but you want to ask him that question?
Are you talking about what does character mean to you?
No. Your signature music question.
Oh my gosh.
That was a clumsy handoff. Sorry. I was
like, oh no.
Yeah.
Jordan, I swear, Jordan, we have been podcasting together for 2 years.
You would never know. See, Jordan's skeptical. You can
We communicate very well. So Jordan, a question I would always ask all of our guests on the Combine podcast is I call it a life song. So like it would be like, what is your life song? Like pick one song or two, I guess. I don't know. Maybe you could pick two. That kind of just is like, yep, that's me. That's my life. Or maybe it's just the season of life that you're in right now. Like a song that speaks to you and what you are moving through right now.
Genie in a Bottle, Christina Aguilera, no doubt. That's my jam. That's a bop. It's my life song if there ever were one.
Yes.
I could see that. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
dude. I love 90s and early 2000s divas.
Yeah.
Dude, they're my jam. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
Not that Hillary Duff is a diva, but man, what a woman. That's such a hard question. That is a great question.
Well, especially for you as a music person, you know what I mean? Like that's almost unfair to ask, but I thought it would be a good one.
Yeah. I don't know why. Jordan, while you're thinking, I don't know why I don't know why I thought it was the character question you were asking me.
I don't either. That was my fault. It was a bad, like I said, it was a bad handoff. You know, I was trying to alley-oop it and I threw it over the backboard. My fault.
He caught me snoozing.
I love such morbid and depressing songs. So I don't know that I'd call any of them a life song or any of those types of things. There's a song by Dustin Kensrue called "It's Not Enough." I don't know if that's the answer that I would cling to for the rest of my life, but that's the only one that's coming to mind right now. And it's the lyrics are something along the lines of like, if I did this and I did that and I did all of these things, would it be enough, sort of thing. And the kind of the climax of the song is him just singing, it's not enough. It's not enough. Like there's more to do. There's more to be said. There's more to be accomplished and that sort of thing. So that's a great song. If you ever get a chance to listen to it, there's a cool music video that goes along with it as well. It's really good visual. He's a great guy. But check that out.
Right. Very cool. Well, good. Yeah. Awesome.
That's great. And that's actually a good segue into this last question that we like to ask. So obviously we started off by telling people how we were connected to you. And then now we want to, before we, get people connected to you and social media and all that stuff, we like to ask people, is there a brand, an organization, a person, a band that you feel like we need to be connected with?
Dude, absolutely. The first one that comes to mind is one called Run Against Traffic. It's a homie of ours. His name's Tommy Green and his wife, Chrissy Green. It's a movement basically there's a lot of movements out there that are trying to help end sex trafficking and sex slavery and that sort of stuff right now. But the thing that they really focus on is rehabilitating these people who are coming out of this, because what happens is, I don't want to give numbers because I'm not sure exactly what they are, but let's ballpark. I want to say something like 60 to 70% of people who are rescued from sex trafficking typically end up back in sex trafficking. There's a lot of reasons for that, but one of the main ones being that there's no real rehabilitation process for this. So we get all super hyped and excited that we gave money and rescued 85 billion children out of sex trafficking, and we bought a tank or whatever it is people do. I don't know, but there's tangible steps that really have to be put into place after that, and there's not a receiving end for these things to be able to facilitate the type of actual progress that we'd like to see in that world, in that realm of things. And so what Run Against Traffic does is they're raising money regularly through marathons and running and various other things to build rehabilitation centers, where it would be essentially like a battered women's shelter type of scenario, where they can bring these women to help rehabilitate them into a regular lifestyle, and all the different things with therapy and counseling and whatever it is they need, getting them the resources and tools that they need to go back into a healthy life and not ending up in those types of scenarios again. They're phenomenal. Absolutely love them. They're two of the best people on the planet. Their story and how you can find it on their website, but their story of how they got into it and created it is unbelievable. It's definitely worth checking out. They're awesome.
That sounds incredible. We may have to get that contact info from you for a podcast, because that sounds like it would be really interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, and so how can they get connected with you, your band, social media, all that stuff?
Oh, Joshua, they can get with us on Instagram. My phone number is 916. No, I want to double check.
Hey, you'd be surprised. Deb's put out personal information out here before.
Danger.
That's what I try to tell her.
Okay. We don't have that many fans yet. It's okay. I'm not worried.
On the other one's a different story. So a lot of people were like, "Hey, you're playing soccer when? I'll be there." You know, is that
this park?
Park. Yeah.
Exactly.
We are. It looks like Lost Things Band is our Instagram, and that is really the only place that we're putting content out right now. We have a Facebook, but Facebook's dying, so we're not really on there a whole lot. And Facebook does a great job of throttling your reach. As far as, if you guys have a podcast, I'm sure you know, you post things on Facebook and it gets a half a like, which isn't even possible, and then that's it.
Yeah, and it's usually me.
It's rough.
That's usually me.
It's just it. That's
my own personal account. Do you do the TikTok thing?
Yo, I wild out on TikTok. We don't have a band TikTok yet though, but that's probably the next step in those things as stuff is changing. So yeah, we'll probably have one pretty soon. But yeah, Instagram is the best place to find our stuff, and Spotify album will be out at some point in the next couple of months. And then my OnlyFans, hit me up there. That monthly, I'll give you a code for your listeners or something.
Yeah. Can you give us a little idea of what kind of content you have on your OnlyFans?
You definitely have to. The first month is cheaper, so you can get in at a low price to find out what I'm about. But I don't want you guys to get flagged on YouTube or anything for the content I put out. So
it
is what it is. You know what I mean?
Let's just say if you enjoy the beard, there's more to it. We'll leave it at that. Yeah.
That's right.
There you go.
That's the way.
Well, hey man, we appreciate you taking some time to talk to us and answer all of our silly questions about the music industry and how the creative process goes, man. And hopefully once everything, at some point gets back to normal, you guys will be out there again, out on the stage and doing your thing. And we're looking forward to the new music too, man. We're going to keep an eye on that for sure. So
awesome, man. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, for sure. So Merry Christmas. Say hi to the family. Hey, and let your wife know that we're going to be reaching out to her at some point soon for her to be on, if she'd be willing. Yeah. Maybe both of you guys. Maybe we get both of you guys on individually and then at some point together.
Yeah, dude. Perfect. We'll talk about quarantine marriage. It'll be sick.
Ooh. There we go. I love it. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. And we'll talk to you guys later.
Awesome, man. Thanks.
Thanks for watching the show. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button to get a new episode every week. We'll see you next time on the Connectable Podcast.